Our story begins inside of the Jedi Temple Communications Tower as Mace Windu has just sent Anakin Skywalker to Palpatine's office. Commander Cody just reported that Obi-Wan has engaged General Grievous, so Skywalker was sent to gauge Palpatine's reaction. But now that Anakin was gone, Mace decided to do something that the Jedi rarely did. He punched in a code that would send a message to every Jedi Council member, along with a select few other Jedi Masters, ordering them to drop whatever they are doing and return to Coruscant immediately. Mace knew it was only a matter of time until he goes and confronts Palpatine. He would be bringing Kit Fisto, Aegon Kolar, and Saesee Tiin with him, but he wanted the other council members here for when it is all over. The Jedi will have to act quickly to secure the Senate. Plus, there was the wild card of Anakin Skywalker. Mace wondered where the boy would fit into all of this, and across the city, Anakin Skywalker was learning the truth of all of this. Chancellor Palpatine revealed to Anakin that he is Darth Sidious, and Anakin was forced to make a choice. Ultimately, he would return to the Jedi Temple and inform Windu of this. Windu would make his own choice now, telling Skywalker to wait in the council chambers until they return. This order was agonizing to Anakin. As he waited in the council, he would eventually leave and head right over to the executive building. And inside of Palpatine's office, the bodies of 3 Jedi were laying dead on the floor. Fisto, Kolar, and Tiin have fallen. Only Windu remained, and Mace would eventually defeat Darth Sidious, pushing him into the corner of the window to secure victory. And then, the wild card of everything, Anakin Skywalker would enter. Everything would happen in a blur. Palpatine asked Anakin to help him. Windu said he was going to end this, and Windu raised his blade for the kill. Anakin stepped in, and he would cement his place by Palpatine's side, cutting down Windu as Sidious would throw him out into the streets. Everyone in the Jedi Temple who knew of Mace Windu's mission was tensely waiting for his return. Sindralik and Shaak Ti, among others, were waiting until the faint sound of marching boots could be heard. Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, was leading the 501st up the temple stairs. But unexpected reinforcements were finally arriving. When Windu made the call, Yoda had passed on command of the Battle of Kashyyyk to Quinlan Vos, as he and Luminara were leaving Kashyyyk together. Obi-Wan defeated Grievous, immediately stealing his ship to come back. Plo Koon secured Cato Nemoidia, and he came back. Mundi and Ayla were forced to leave their troops in awful situations, but they were following orders. Coleman Kaj, Aporancy, Stas Ali, and Depa Billaba were in battle preparation when they evacuated. And, although reports of the Jedi leaving were filed in the Republic battle plans, Palpatine was far too occupied to notice. And above the Coruscant traffic, starfighters of the highly skilled Jedi Masters flew through the air. As they were reading reports flying in from all around the galaxy of war, Jedi were being shot down by clone troopers everywhere. And Yoda would activate his comms, speaking with all of these Council Jedi and other Masters here. All of these Jedi were seeing the same thing. The Jedi Temple was under attack, and from what the Jedi could see, it appeared to be under attack from clone troopers. Yoda firmly told the Jedi that something has gone terribly wrong, but for the sake of the Jedi Order and the Republic, they must now treat the clones as their enemies, just as they would with droids. For some, such as Plo Koon and Kenobi, these words were like a stab to the gut. For others, like Mundi or Luminara, they easily let these feelings for the clones pass through them as they prepared for battle. On the temple stairs, Anakin Skywalker and the 501st clones would hear the sound of gunships approaching. They turned to see what was going on. Stas Ali and Coleman Kaj broke formation, flying low towards the stairs, firing upon the clones here. The clones were forced to run down or sprint right into the temple. From neighboring buildings to the Jedi Temple, LAAT clone gunships suddenly would emerge, chasing down these Jedi fighters. Apple Rancesis' ship was clipped. It crashed into the temple roof, but he ejected just in time before running down into the temple. Depa Billaba and Luminara Unduli spun their fighters around the temple, flying behind the clone gunships, taking out a few of them as they chased down the other Jedi. And through the comms, Plo Koon reported to the others that there is a Jedi leading the clones into the temple. A blue lightsaber was just seen igniting. Stas Ali was still flying her ship around the stairs, firing at clones, when Anakin threw his lightsaber spinning through the air. It sliced right through Ali's main wing, and she could not eject in time. her fighter crashed through a temple wall, killing her. Obi-Wan went pale as he realized who this was. It was not too hard to figure out. He opened up his own comms, telling everyone this was Anakin. He had no doubt about this. He will take on his former Padawan alone. Obi-Wan turned his ship down towards the temple entrance, and as Anakin reached up, freezing the ship with the Force, Obi-Wan flipped out of it, igniting his lightsaber, landing directly in front of Anakin, right at the temple gates. Behind him, inside of the temple, Obi-Wan could hear the carnage already taking place. Clone troopers had entered from the windows using speeders, gunships, jetpacks, and whatever else. The march through gates here was going to be the tidal wave that destroyed everyone in the temple, but the Jedi inside were in trouble already. Anakin turned, ordering all of the clones behind him to find another way inside. The stairs were crumbling. They were on fire. Bodies of clones littered the area, and they were scrambling back down to circle back to other entrances, or to create their own entrances. Anakin and Obi-Wan could both see the remaining Jedi Council Masters fly over to towers or other windows, and they were running into the temple to try and secure it. Anakin looked upon his former master, telling him he cannot win. He and Darth Sidious are more powerful than the Jedi can possibly imagine. Reinforcements will be coming along. The Jedi will finally fall. Obi-Wan shook his head, pacing back and forth, unable to wrap his head around what was going on. He told Anakin to stop this madness, turn himself in, let the war end peacefully. Anakin snorted at these words, saying the Jedi would never allow the war to end peacefully. He knows they're trying to take over the Republic. He saw it when Windu and the others tried to kill Palpatine. Obi-Wan felt like he was the one going insane. He told Anakin to look around. The clones that trusted him, that fought and died for the Republic, have been turned into droids. The Jedi inside the temple, the children, elders, peaceful Jedi, are being slaughtered for nothing, and Anakin is leading the attack. At this point, Anakin's mind was buzzing with anger. Deep down, he may have known that Obi-Wan was right, but he also knew the only way to save Padme was by accessing the full power of the dark side, and right now, Obi-Wan was standing in the way of that power. Anakin spun his lightsaber, telling Kenobi he never should have gotten in his way, and he flew in at Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan ducked beneath this strike, elbowing Anakin in the back, then slamming his own saber down on Anakin. Anakin blocked it behind his back, twisted around, and kicked Kenobi off of the stairs. Obi-Wan fell far, but he used the Force to soften his landing, and he looked up just in time to roll away from another killing blow as Anakin dropped down. Obi-Wan flipped the hair from his eyes, and he reset himself as Anakin did the same. Meanwhile, inside of the Jedi Temple, hundreds of clone troopers in here had to switch their attention. Half of them were in the main hall, firing at temple guards and other knights or masters that were defending the temple, while the other half of clones were going from room to room, taking out whoever was in here. At the time of the attack, there were roughly 9,000 Jedi. At the start of the war, that number was around 10,000, but 10% of them have fallen in battle, and when Order 66 came in, around 1,500 Jedi were in the temple. The others were all spread throughout the galaxy, and most of the ones fighting out in the galaxy have already been shot down by their clones. And when the Council Masters arrived, only around 1,000 Jedi remained. Younglings, Padawans, Elders, Security, and the occasional Knight or Master. Many of them were not capable of fighting, and so, when they watched the Council Masters run into battle, hope was beginning to be restored. Coleman Kaj, Shakti, Depabalaba, Aporensis, Plo Koon, Luminara, Kiadimundi, Yoda, and Ayla Sakura, who was a reserve on the Council. And from a training room, a group of younglings hid in the corner as 10 501st clones ran in, blasters ready to fire. But Yoda flipped at them, jumping from clone to clone, cutting them down before telling these younglings to stay hidden. The same happened with other groups of Jedi as they were rescued by the other council members. But not every Jedi Master would survive. As Coleman Kaj was guiding a group of Padawans to the back emergency exit, where an evacuation transport was being prepared to land, a yellow lightsaber would ignite through Coleman's back, killing him instantly. A temple guard was working with Anakin and the clones. He was going to be a leader of the coming Inquisitors. But a moment later, the tail of Aporensis swept this guard to the floor. Appo slithered in, striking at the guard, lashing his tail into the guard again, as he then threw him hard into a pillar. The guard slowly got up, reaching out to grab Appo in a forced choke, but luckily, Depa Billaba ran in, pulling down the cracked pillar with the force, killing this guard. She nodded to Appo, and the two of them ran back into the fight. Yoda and Plo were trying to spread the message that transports were landing in the back, as not long ago, Bail Organa landed a speeder to try and see what was going on here. Plo Koon had mowed down the troopers, trying to get in Bail's way, and Plo told him everything. Bail would then get to work, preparing an evacuation plan for the Temple Jedi. Plo ran back in, and he found Luminara being shot down at the door, trying to stop clones from getting to Plo and Bail. She died quickly, and Plo blasted a force push into these clones, pushing them off the balcony as they fell to their deaths. The clones were losing momentum. As the occasional Jedi Master died, hundreds of clones fell with them, and the clones were being pushed to the side exits or the main gates as the Council Masters guided the hundreds of surviving Jedi to the back, loading them into Alderaan transports that were stationed above Coruscant before the attack. Shaak Ti was ushering younglings and Padawans over to the evacuation area, blocking blaster bolts from every angle. But soon, she too would fall to the onslaught. But she got the young Jedi safely to the exit, and as everyone was being loaded up, Yoda looked at Depa Billaba, telling her to go find Obi-Wan, help him with Skywalker, and meet the rest of them on Ahch-To. Depa nodded, and she ran out of the temple. Down in the dark streets of Coruscant, Obi-Wan went flying through an old warehouse as Anakin had force-pushed him through it. Anakin wiped blood from his brow as he stormed into this warehouse. Obi-Wan was throwing sheets of metal at his old friend. Anakin cut through every one of them, then ducked under the final one before grabbing it with the Force, spinning and throwing it back at Kenobi. It grazed through the left thigh of Obi-Wan, and he fell to the ground, in pain and bleeding. Anakin struck harder than ever with his saber, swinging it down, and Obi-Wan held up his saber with both hands, feeling the plasma just inches from his face. The sabers got closer, and Obi-Wan yelled out in pain as it touched his cheek. He used his left hand, feeling around on his side, finally grabbing a rock, slamming it right into Anakin's head. But as Anakin fell away, his saber sliced right down on Kenobi's left eye. Anakin crashed to the ground, head spinning, pain radiating from where Obi-Wan just crashed a rock into his skull. He and Kenobi both stumbled to their feet, Obi-Wan clutching his scarred, burned away eye, as Anakin had to wipe a constant stream of blood from getting into his own eyes. And both of them just reached their hands out with the Force push. They locked together, both of them straining extremely hard, and this fight went beyond Jedi versus Sith. It was years of frustration and anger for Anakin, and it was pure desperation and pain for Obi-Wan. Until finally, both of them went flying backwards, crashing into the wall, both going unconscious. Depa Billaba was running across buildings, going from roof to roof, following the trail of destruction left by Skywalker and Kenobi when she found the warehouse. It was completely destroyed, and in the rubble lay two broken men. She would pick up both Anakin and Obi-Wan's bodies, throwing them over her shoulder, and with the Force enhancing her strength, she would slowly stumble over to a civilian hangar, where she would find a ship capable of carrying all three of them. Once inside, she would place Jedi handcuffs around Anakin's wrists, using a Force trick to ensure his mind stays asleep. As for Obi-Wan, she would hook him up to a bacta pouch in this ship, and then take off into civilian traffic, blending in with the people. Outside of the Jedi Temple, surviving Council Masters Appo Rensis, Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Yoda, and Aayla Secura loaded every one of the surviving 700 Jedi onto 2 Alderaan transports, 350 on both. Plo and Yoda guarded the entrance, as Appo, Aayla, and Mundi boarded the first transport with half of the Jedi. Yoda gave the all-clear signal, and the Alderaan pilots rose up into the air. And then, it all went wrong. As the first transport rose up, the engines were blasted with heavy lightning, and in just a few seconds, the engines exploded, along with the rest of the ship and the 350 Jedi inside, now including Appo, Mundi, and Aayla. In seconds, the first evacuation ship went from success to despair. Yoda and Plo looked through the explosion to see Darth Sidious cackling with glee, and Yoda turned, crushing the Jedi Temple doors as the final Jedi were finally out. and he told everyone to board the other transport. He and Plo will handle the Sith. Sidious looked over to Yoda and Plo, exclaiming that they cannot stop him, and Plo would spin his own lightsaber in his hand, adrenaline fueling him, as he and Yoda prepared for a final duel. Sidious would allow this second transport to take off, knowing that the Coruscant blockade will blow it up anyways, and he quickly lunged for the two Jedi. Yoda and Plo blocked the strikes together, and as Yoda flipped around the Dark Lord, Plo was taking careful, measured strikes, knowing just how powerful Sidious was. And up in the clouds, a Jedi Padawan named Bene had to be at the controls of this final evacuation transport. Her hands were shaking as she pierced through the clouds and stared up at the blockade that had turned and was looking down on her. She could hear the anxious talking of the 350 Jedi behind her in this transport, and she wondered if it would be possible for her to even get out of here through this blockade. But moments later, ships from all around the galaxy would emerge from hyperspace and begin firing at the Republic blockade. Bene breathed a huge sigh of relief as the comms activated, and Bail Organa said that he'd made a few calls. Let's just say that Palpatine doesn't have as many friends in the Senate as he may think. Bene pushed her throttle forward, and as clone starfighters began flying towards her, a Corellian light fighter came out of nowhere, shooting these clone fighters down. Bene looked out of the transport window to see Depa Billaba flying the ship, giving her a nod of confidence as she spun through the explosions, guiding the transport into space. For Bene, Depa was always a Jedi that she looked up to, and although the circumstances were not ideal, her presence in this moment gave Bene the confidence to rise up and punch in the hyperspace coordinates for Octu. She had an opening. The blockade and the clone fighters were distracted by freedom fighter ships from Alderaan, Naboo, Chandrila, Mon Cala, and a few other planets. The transport blasted off, and the freedom fighters scrambled to make their own escapes. And now, everything was in the hands of Yoda and Plo Koon. If they fail, and if Sidious escapes, it will not just be the Jedi who are targeted for destruction. It will also be every single planet who played a part in helping the Jedi escape. All of them will be labeled as terrorist worlds. So many will suffer, unless the Jedi can prevail. Yoda leapt forward, flipping high, bringing his saber down in a sharp slash. Sidious caught the strike, twisting, kicking Yoda back across the pavement, and Plo pressed in now, spinning his own saber, forcing Sidious to retreat backwards, back towards the temple. The fight grew faster, with each clash echoing beside these temple walls. Yoda's blade swirled low, cutting through the stone at Sidious's feet, while Plo struck from the high angle, blades crossing like a scissor, as Sidious rolled away. Sparks showered the air where he just stood, and Sidious jumped clear, hurling a massive chunk of debris with the Force. Plo raised one hand, catching it midair, and Sidious exploded this debris with lightning, as the smaller chunks fell on the Jedi. Yoda pushed through them, blasting back into the duel as the sun was finally rising on Coruscant, washing the battlefield in a golden hue. Sidious struck with everything he had, saber flashing with thrusts, aimed at Yoda's chest. Yoda leapt and spun, driving Sidious back step by step, and Plo closed back in, saber closing in a final strike that forced Sidious to block wide. Yoda landed behind the Sith Lord, slashing low, severing the hilt from Sidious's hand. Sidious tried to use lightning, but Plo was already there, pulling the red blade into his open hand, driving both of the blades right through Sidious's chest. The lightning would die on his fingertips as the Sith Lord collapsed. Yoda and Plo were standing together, breathing hard as the smoke would clear. The temple spires loomed above them, battered, unbroken, and the morning sun was washing over the two Jedi as the darkness of the night faded with the Sith. From all around the walls, clone trooper reinforcements were finally running in, and as they emerged through the dust, there was no one left. Yoda and Plo were gone. Only the body of Sidious remained. The two Jedi would take a speeder, blending in with the rest of Coruscant. They would have to lay low for a while, but first, Plo would fly over to the executive building as the two of them scoured the ground. Eventually, they found the body of Mace Windu, and although his body was dead, the midichlorians inside of him still clung to life. Yoda and Plo both knelt down and put their hands on Mace's head. They poured the power of the light side into him, using Force Heal, until a small breath was heard from Windu. He was alive, although deep in a coma, and the two Jedi would put him onto their speeder as they went into hiding in the underworld. The next few days and weeks would be chaos for the Republic. Bail Organa and Mon Mothma would step into the Senate to reveal everything they knew from the Jedi and their own sources. The investigation tying Palpatine to Dooku and the Separatists would be long, but eventually the truth would be discovered. The clones would all undergo rapid inhibitor chip removal, freeing them from the curse of their design. As for the Jedi, they would begin to rebuild on Ahch-To. Around 450 were here, of about 10,000 from when the war began. Yoda, Plo Koon, Depa Billaba, and Obi-Wan Kenobi were the main four here, along with Ahsoka Tano, who was young but highly respected. And in one of the caves, Anakin Skywalker was in a built-up ray shield prison. His actions could not go unpunished. He was expelled from the Order for attempting to kill Mace Windu and leading the clones to the temple. Days after being captured, galactic senators traveled here to meet with the Jedi, including Padme Amidala. She had given a safe birth to twins, and Anakin was beyond heartbroken to see what his actions created. Padme could barely look at him. She felt he was responsible for every Jedi that died in the temple, including so many innocent children. Having him around her children was no easy thought. So, Anakin was kept here in a cave prison as the Jedi evolved. Mace Windu survived. He would be one of Anakin's most frequent visitors. Despite everything, Mace found Anakin to be rather fascinating, and Anakin was maturing quickly while in this cell. Years would begin to go by, and when Luke and Leia were around 5 years old, they would be allowed to visit their father. The Jedi Order was growing, and soon, the two of them would become Jedi younglings. The Order on Ahch-To was an order that was spreading into the galaxy, helping anyone who requested it, while the Republic was also expanding to try and fix its mistakes from the war under Chancellor Mon Mothma. In the end, Grandmaster Plo Koon would bring the Jedi into a new era. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka would train the twins. Yoda would be an older guide, and Anakin would regret the day that everything changed. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one as always. I did. It was one that I had some idea of where it was going to go when I started out, but it did change a little throughout. Obviously not the happiest of endings for Anakin, but if you want a happy ending for Anakin, you can go check out a lot of my other videos. Wanted to switch that up a bit and just change that up. So, hope you guys enjoy so far. Appreciate you guys for checking this one out. As always, let me know what you want to see next. And it was fun to just kind of include and feature a lot of the Jedi that don't always get featured. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.